In this section, we are going to talk about feeding the birds, and I promise not to break out into the Mary Poppins song, Feed the Birds. So you can find bird feeders online and almost all garden and hardware shops. The Audubon Society has their own line of bird feeders, which are quite nice. A little bit pricier than the ones you might find at your local hardware store. However, these are actually made to last and have specific things about them that are really good for birds. So depending on how much you want to spend, go with what you can. If you do want to feed the birds, do your research and buy a bird feeder that works for you. Now, if you are concerned about squirrels, you may want to use a bird feeder that deters them. Make sure, if you have more than one bird feeder, to place it at different levels to avoid crowding. We made the mistake last year of having a few bird feeders hanging from a window outside, and they were too close together, and it was almost like the birds were fighting each other to get to it. So we had to move them, and it was much nicer after that. Also, if you want to attract different types of birds, you want to use different types of seeds depending on what kind of bird you want to attract. So you could put different kinds of seeds in different bird feeders and spread them around your garden or yard. Another great way for your children and your cats to watch birds without having to interact with them is to add a window feeder. And these are like plexiglass plastic that you can attach to your window outside with two little suction cups. And it's a great way to watch birds without disturbing them. They can be messy depending on what kind of birds are attracted to them and what kind of seed you put in them. And you do have to clean these pretty often because they do get messy sometimes. They're inexpensive, and we found that they'll last maybe 1 to 2 months depending on what kind of seeds and birds, and then after that I just replace them. There are several birds that like to feed on the ground. Birds like sparrows and towhees and juncos are just a few. Sometimes you'll see blue jays on the ground as well. So you can place their seeds in shallow bowls or pans or even feeders. But you want to make sure that it's not an obvious place for predators such as outdoor cats or even raptors to attack. If you don't want to deal with bird seed and that type of mess that they make, you can also feed the birds with suet feeders. And these will attract woodpeckers, nuthatches, chickadees, cardinals, depending on what kind of suet you put in them. It also protects birds from cats and other predators because they're hanging up higher. So, hopefully the cat can't jump up that high and get the bird. They do make a mess in the summertime. I don't use suet anymore in the summertime because it gets too hot and it starts to get melting and it looks kind of gross once it melts. So I only do the suets in the winter now. So let's talk a little bit more about suet. You can find different types of suet to attract different types of birds. It's best to buy one that will attract birds native to your area, and your local hardware shop should have something like that, or your nursery. Just as a warning, there is beef fat in some suet. So you want to read the ingredients, especially if you are vegan or a vegetarian. And the problem with the beef fat is, as I mentioned before, is in the summertime it gets hot and gooey and stinky. So I don't use that anymore. I didn't even know there was beef fat in suet until I started researching it. So I will start making my own suet without it. Make sure your feeders are not too close to one another because it will provoke fights between birds depending on what type of birds they are. So you want to keep them far apart, and like I said, keep an eye out on it if you use them in the summertime. And I forgot to mention, if you leave suet out in the hot weather, it can become rancid, and then it will be detrimental to the birds. So if you don't want to buy a bird feeder, get creative and make your own. You can use old teacups, coffee cups, and cans. Think outside the box and just fill it with birdseed. Use a recycled egg crate and fill it with birdseed. One of the most popular bird seeds that birds love are sunflower seeds. So these will attract the widest variety of birds. So if you don't want to buy specific bags for a bird seed for types of birds, then just go with the sunflower seeds. Now, they can make a mess, just so you know, unless you buy them already shelled. Other seeds will attract different types of birds, so you're going to have to find a bird seed mix that's specific to that bird, and you can find them packaged like that. Audubon has a whole entire section of bird seeds specific to like cardinals and blue jays and you name it and they have it, woodpeckers, etc. You want to make sure that your bird seed doesn't have a lot of filler in it, things like oats and red millet, because it just creates waste, it creates a mess, and the birds just don't like it. They spit it out and they throw it all over the place. So you might find that, oh, this bag of bird feed is way cheaper, but half of it is filled with filler, so you're really wasting your money. So do your research, look at the bag, read the ingredients, and buy the one for the birds you want to attract in your area. For those who don't want to bother with birds that are messy or cleaning up shells or anything like that, depending on where you put your bird feeder, you can find no waste bird seed, and the seed shells are removed from the feed to prevent the mess. It may cost a tiny bit more, but it's so worth it if you don't want to clean up a mess. Make sure that you store your bird feed in metal containers with lids, or even a plastic container with lids with a tight lid to prevent mice, rats, squirrels, even raccoons from breaking into it. Keep it in a dry, cool location. Damp seeds grow mold, and this can be harmful to birds and even fatal to birds. And you don't want to keep seeds from one winter to the next because it will go bad. If you don't want to buy bird seed, but you love blue jays and cardinals, put out peanuts. Squirrels love peanuts too, and they will try to steal them from your feeder. Now please be cautious with peanuts. If you or anyone in your family members have peanut allergies, you either want to wear gloves while filling the feeder or perhaps just skipping the peanuts and using some other type of seed. There are several types and species of birds that just love fruit. Fruit sugar is an excellent source of energy for breeding, maintaining body heat, and migration. So you could put out little chunks of apples, cherries, elderberries, plums, oranges, mulberries, crabapples, grapes, berries, blueberries, raspberries, raisins, pumpkin, and prickly pear. You could get creative and place fresh fruit or even dried fruit into small chunks and place it in an open tray or like a mesh bag or suet cage. You can hang the fruit like a garland or a decorative feeder, and they like that too. Fruit can be placed on the ground, however, it may attract rodents, so be careful. Here are some of the birds, not all, that love fruits and berries. Robins, blue jays, bluebirds, chickadees, catbirds, grackles, finches, grosbeaks, mockingbirds, orioles, parrots, tanagers, thrashers, thrushes, tufted titmouse, waxwings, woodpeckers, wrens, and tanagers. We have a whole section in this class on how to attract hummingbirds, but in case you miss it, Here is a recipe for your hummingbird feeder. Another great way to attract birds and pollinators are just to plant sunflowers. You don't even have to go out and buy seeds if you don't want to. Sunflowers are a natural way to attract birds, bees, butterflies into your garden. They're hardy, they live long, and they can grow up to several feet high. This is very important. You must clean your feeders. Seeds and seed shells become soggy and they grow mold, and this can be fatal to birds. We had a whole warning here in Massachusetts last year that the Audubon Society sent out emails and put out ads, stop feeding the birds for a while because there were birds dying because of the mold in bird feeders. So you want to empty and clean your feeders at least every few weeks, especially in the summer. Scrub them with dish detergent, rinse really, really well, and if possible, you can soak it in a bucket of non-chloride bleach for a few hours. Rinse and allow to dry in the sun. Make sure you really, really rinse it though. Or just recycle your bird feeder and buy a new one if it's beyond cleaning. One thing about birdseed is that when it spills into your garden, it may pop up as weeds and sometimes flowers, and it also may attract rodents, so be careful where you place your bird feeders and what types of seeds you put in there. If you're attracting a lot of birds into your yard, you want to make sure that you're preventing birds from colliding into your windows. In the United States, there's like about 1 billion birds that die each year from flying into windows. And if you've ever seen it happen, it's horrifying. So you just really want to make sure that never happens. You can place feeders within a few feet of windows to prevent the bird collisions. And you can also place like mobiles or wind chimes or wind decorations on the glass outside the windows to prevent collisions. Please don't hate me, but please don't feed the birds bread. Bread is heavily processed, it contains chemicals, very little protein, lots of gluten, and birds need protein to develop their feathers and their muscles, and birds need fat for energy. So that's why they like seeds, because seeds have plenty of good fat and protein in them. Bread scraps shouldn't be given, especially during the spring and early summer when the birds are feeding their offspring. I know it's difficult. It's always so tempting to feed ducks and geese bread, but think of something different to feed them instead. If you have an outdoor cat or if there's one roaming through your neighborhood, you want to make sure that you keep them away from your bird feeders as much as possible. Now, I know how difficult that is because I have cats and we have lots of outdoor cats here in our neighborhood that roam. So you could have your cat wear a collar with a little bell on it to warn the birds, and also keep the bird feeders up high so the cats cannot get to the birds. If you love birds and you want to learn more about them, I recommend checking out the Cornell Lab website. It's dedicated to species of birds and the seeds that they're attracted to. It's filled with information. It's a great site and source of information, and it's great for children too who are learning about birds and wildlife. Feed the birds, tuppence a bag, tuppence, tuppence, tuppence a bag. Feed the birds, that's what she cried.